write books for adults, and last year decided to venture into children's books. And I was amazed by the kind of challenges I experienced. I had an editor once write back to me from one of the big publishers to say, well, even though we put it out there that we are looking for books by people of color, we are looking for Canada-centered books. And then I started asking myself, okay, if you're looking for Canada-centered books, how do you plan to teach the children in the diaspora and people of African origin about Africa? So for me, authentic stories. So Bino and Fino, I first came across it before I left Nigeria. What they're talking about. I'm a history junkie. And I said, if I was going to write anything for kids, my goal will be to educate children about historical African facts, so as not to lose the essence of the story. Growing up, we had things, I grew up in the North. So we had things like Sesame Street. Then through the years, Voltron came in, Terrorhawks. But the closest thing to African content for kids, I remember as a child, was Tales by Moonlight. And up north, we had Magana Jariche. We had that in the North. So that was the reason why. Yeah, so first of all, I would like to ask, what inspired you to start this? Because animation in Nigeria is tough, I believe. Because one, the challenges, there is power, there is cost. So what inspired you to start this?
Well, I think it's just a simple thought of just, I thought it'd be a good idea. That's basically the short story. It's not that complicated. I was either going to do two things. I was always, those shows that you mentioned, Terrorhawks, Voltron, all had a very big influence on me. I drew all the time when I was a kid, etc., etc. So the trajectory was heading in that direction anyway. When I eventually found myself back in Nigeria, instead of my company, the short story is I did some, let's say, client work. I did animation when I was abroad, but then when I came back to Nigeria, I did many client work, but the terrain was very risky. Okay. You do work, you can get paid, etc., etc. This was like, you're looking at maybe 2000 and you're looking at least 13 years ago now, 14 years ago now.
Okay.
And animation wasn't really respected. It just wasn't respected. It was just like, I think my son can do this, my cousin, blah, 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 all that kind of rubbish. So at one point, it got to the point where it was almost as risky just to, in my head, that I could just go and just do what I wanted to create my own. I didn't want the future of my company to be dictated to by somebody who's not on seat, who wasn't taking us seriously. One decision can cost you 6 months payment. I'm not gonna stop that. So I said, okay, fine. I have these ideas in my head. I have two ways to go. One is either more, almost like a Voltron style thing, which was more, let's say, older age orientated.
Okay.
Or it was gonna be animation anyway. It's gonna be, whatever I was gonna do, it's gonna be animation. That's my love. I love that. I love animation, sci-fi, all these kind of things, kid shows. So kid shows, adult shows, whatever, that whole genre, I love it. So it was gonna be in that zone. So I decided, okay, either that level or something more for preschool kids, pre-K, because if you want to look at it from a more idealistic standpoint, those minds are the ones which are more open to information, open to be molded. They haven't already become hard. By the time you're 15, yeah, you can still change your minds about things, but you're already down a specific path. Or if you're 3, if you're, let's put it this way, if you're a Nigerian kid who's 3, or Kenyan kid who's 3, or Japanese kid who's 3, or whatever, you're open to whatever's coming in. You're not already poisoned by a lot of our adult issues. So I thought, okay, fine. The layers to this, if I want to now have something that I believe will have an impact, I thought the kids one, the kind of impact I'm looking for. The kids one for me felt more. The kind of impact that happened to me, let's put it that way. When I watched Sesame Street, when I watched Voltron, what I thought about, I didn't even know I was thinking it, but what I thought about Japan, Voltron, and all these kind of, what I thought about the US, what I thought about different cultures, what I enjoyed, I just wanted the same, but from my own side. So I think for me, it made sense to attack younger minds, which are still open and haven't been closed off yet. That was what. So it's a combination of, listen, the business terrain is so tough that I could actually just take the risk anyway. In my mind, I have nothing to lose because I've lost so much from the so-called safer way. Yeah. In animation itself, which wasn't safe. Let's put it that way. It wasn't safe in Nigeria at that point in time.
Okay.
So, so I just took the risk. I said, okay, fine. Either take this one or take that side. I'm going for the kids one. I'm going for that's the shortest summary I can give. This is a process that went over 2-3 years.
Oh, wow. Well, and I like the fact that... No, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, I like the choice of names. Bino, Fino, Mama, Papa. Names that children can easily remember. And so, why African content? Why African content? Yeah, why African? Because if you're looking at it, because someone told me when I was trying to put my book out there, I decided to go ahead and just self-publish it. And someone said to me, well, Louisa, you need to think of two things. I agree you're coming from a point of passion, but also think of business. What are people going to buy? So I said, but well, I want to write about African content. I want to write what I know. I want to write what I'm passionate about. I don't want to lose the essence of my mission because my series is called Africa is Not a Country. But they said, well, yeah, that is it. Someday you can do that when you become a known name. But for now, why not just do what people will buy? But for me, I go, yeah, what people will buy, but what's the point? What's the essence of doing what I'm not passionate about? So that's why African content? Knowing full well the challenges, what was the reception like? Because I watched lots of episodes of Bino and Fino, and through the episodes, I saw the episode evolving from the way the children look to Fino's glasses, and then content, even the children having conversations, because when it started, it was someone narrating the story. And through the years now, I like that both kids are having conversations. So why African content?
That's quite simple. It depends. I don't know who you're speaking to, but it depends on context. When you're here, it's an obvious thing to do. But if you're now abroad and pitching to publishing houses and gatekeepers, and which, to be honest with you, I mean, now it's different, but let's say back then, I've had the same discussions. We had the same discussions with TV broadcasters and stuff like that globally. It's what they used to. They had no African content to base anything on. They were probably just trying to think actually in your own self, depends who it is, in your own self-interest, like, listen, in their minds, this is not popular. They don't have any product that has done it. So let's say they had a product that had hit, like now Black Panther, quote unquote, whatever you want to say about it, has now hit 1 billion. Okay, that opened, okay, cool, let's just do this now. We can now do this now. We can do something African. Now, for a lot of these people who had it closed off, it's business. Most people like money. If they don't see anything African things selling, they're like, oh, we're not gonna, I don't see it, so why don't you just do this instead? And then maybe, because we don't think it's going to sell, because they haven't seen anything like it selling. Of course, you have other levels of that. You have more, you can have the people who just like, no, I don't think it's going to sell because I haven't seen anything like that selling in the history of our market. There's no precedence. We don't want to now take the risk of investing money to now test out a theory. So we're going to back out. Then you have the ones where it's a bit more, let's say, I don't know if the word is, more political, where they just don't want to do it. They're just like, no, we don't want this kind of content, period. So you have this whole spectrum. It's not all bad. Some of them just don't, they're like, no, I haven't seen, okay, give me 5 African-based children's books, or 5 African whatever that have blown up in the Canadian market and are still kicking it in the top 10 now, then I can now talk to you. But otherwise, sorry, I don't want to take the risk. People are very risk averse. So from my point of view, it was 2 things. One, if Nigeria is like, of course it's going to be African content. What else is it going to be? You could. For me, it had to be. It's not even a question. Because of what I wanted it to do. It was this project, this specific project is about creating content for everybody, but has that Nigerian stroke African focus. So it's not only for Nigerian kids, but it's something that represents Nigerian African kids very well, and the culture to that demographic. So if you're in Japan, if you're in China watching this show, you're going to get a very positive representation, just like how I got a very positive representation of the US by watching Sesame Street. So that's the way I see it. It's just us representing our corner. Just, this is us. This is the culture for us. And also on top of that, we didn't have anything like that. But I wasn't really thinking that deep. To be honest with you, I was just thinking, no, it has to be from here. What else is it gonna? I can't now go and do a Voltron. No, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I was like, no, it has to be something from here, because that's my surroundings and that's what it's all about. And that I lived in the UK, and so it's different when you go to different places. So in Nigeria, of course, it's almost like you almost have to go against the grain to produce something not Nigerian. But if you're in the UK, or I don't know, maybe Canada, wherever it is, the market forces are different. You're in a minority now. You're now all about diversity and this and that. So the discussion is different. It's almost like, oh wow, okay, you have to make something that sells. But if you're Nigerian, it's like, okay, well, it's Nigerian that sells in Nigeria. Dude, actually, that's what I thought. But I found out that that's not actually the case sometimes. But why I chose African content was just a no-brainer for me. I wanted something to represent our side well. It just made sense to me. We don't have anything like it. At that point, we didn't have enough. Let me put it that way. I never like to say we didn't have anything like it. I didn't know what was in the market 15 years ago. But for kids, animation, cartoon-wise, there was nothing. But even now, there's maybe, I don't know, there's us and maybe 5 that are genuinely from the continent. Investment, workforce, creative talent, everything from the continent. Not, okay, Africa's kind of a face for it or something like that. Genuinely homegrown. There are very few, because it's difficult. It's difficult, and for many reasons. There's many reasons why we don't have many, but it's changing slowly. But yeah, to answer your question, it had to be African content. It just wouldn't make any sense if it wasn't.
Yeah, because I remember as a child when I started with comics. I started drawing comics, and because the books I was exposed to as a kid, there were these series then called from Lady Bird Books, Peter and Jane. So we had Peter and Jane books, but they were usually then all the Cinderella stories or the classics. They were usually foreign stories. So I remember very well that the comics I started writing as a child and the stories were foreign based, because that was what I was exposed to. But as I started getting older, I came across Pace Setters. These were series by I think Heinemann Books that were set in Africa. And for me, that was very, very strange, because I had never seen anything like that before. So yeah. So how did you go about, because animation in Nigeria, I don't know about other African countries, but I would talk about Nigeria because that's what I know, must have been very tough. Because I remember I was watching some of your videos, and I saw where you were talking about crowdfunding that you did about 10 years ago. How did that go?
Not very well. Not very well.
No, because not very well, because I think about it. I noticed that some writers do Kickstarter as a way of they use the Kickstarter platform to raise money for for printing and all of that. Yeah. So, and why do you think that didn't go very well?
I think there's a combination of things. I don't think people trusted us.
Okay.
They didn't, sometimes as maybe we didn't handle it properly, didn't handle the marketing properly, people didn't believe in it. People thought, yeah, you guys don't even know what you're talking about because you're asking for this much to now produce a series, etc., etc., etc. When I look about it, it was quite naive what we're trying to do. Sometimes as creators, well, we can sometimes have this expectation that, of course, our stuff is worth it. You're gonna support, right? Because it's this and that. You're gonna support. That Kickstarter crowdfunder thing taught me a few lessons. Taught our team a few lessons about, I mean, maybe we weren't the best team to maybe create let's say a successful, Kickstarter. But what it taught us was, you need to earn your stripes. This is gonna be hard. You need to. There ain't no magic. Maybe now, but there's no magic thing. Hey, support us with this, and then boom. No, we had to. I think maybe, I don't know, but in fact, also we were based in Nigeria. We didn't base it in the UK. We didn't base it in the US. We based it with Nigerian teams that were based in Nigeria. I don't know. But one thing I do know, they didn't have faith in the project. We didn't market it well enough. I think there's a combination of things, but, and who are you? You just guys, we don't know you. You just have one video on YouTube. Who cares? At that point in time, that was like 10 years ago. So, I just think people just didn't have enough faith in the project. I think that's the short, whatever reason, they didn't have enough faith in the project, and we didn't do our job properly to give them faith in the project.
Okay. And
it might be different now. Maybe the terrain is different now, So
yes. Because I noticed people are trying to do a lot of Afrocentric things. Yeah, which I feel is good. And even with books, because for me, books, that's my experience. I noticed that some of the books we grew up reading, especially like Ladybird, they are trying to do African adaptations of those books, which I feel is great. But what are some of the challenges you've experienced in the course of, because I was looking through, you now have Bino and Fino in 8 languages. Yeah. So I didn't remember to count how many episodes you've had so far. But what are some of the challenges you've experienced getting to this point? Because I know Nigeria has crazy talent, raw talent. We have talent. But what are some of the challenges you faced, getting your animators together, writing the script, putting it up there, getting people, the reception? Because now I notice that children in different parts of the world watch it. I'm always happy when I see kids watch like African content and dance to it. I like that response. So what are some of the challenges you experienced, to get into this point, or that you are still experiencing?
I think it's a combination of things. One is just the typical one is finance. You have lack of access to long, patient finance. So a typical animation series takes about 2 to 3 years, okay, maybe 2 years now, to produce. Maybe like you're looking at maybe 50 something to 100 and something episodes.
Okay.
And that's one. So we didn't have access to that because we're not a proven entity. We're based in Nigeria. The banks, there's no entertainment, whatever. It's fair enough. I mean, it took a while for them over there, for the UK, for Canada, South Africa, all these, wherever it is, to have for the creative sector to prove that it can, or for the animation sector to prove that it can make money and repay back these. We haven't done it yet. So there's lack of access to finance. That's one. Talent, yes, but talent in a team that can produce animation is a different thing. So we now have to build that from pretty much the ground up. And learn. So we have to learn how to produce animation, but produce animation in Nigeria to a specific quality. So that again also took some time to understand how to do. And then like you said, we have the talent. Talent's not the issue, but then nobody here had experience in writing for children's animation, experience in writing in, animators experienced in not just doing a 30-second animation, but sitting down for producing 52 episodes. So even not a short commercial, you now have to produce 52 episodes and at scale. How do you do that? Then of course, distribution. Okay, you've produced the animation. This was before, YouTube and ads and all these other things. What was your model? Is the TV station, is NTA gonna buy it? Who's gonna buy it? Who's the off-taker? So external broadcasters aren't gonna buy it because of I thought they would, but they don't. They have their own pipeline. The African ones usually don't have enough money to offset the cost of the production. And also they get a lot of content from abroad at cheaper cost. Because by the time that Disney cartoon hits Nigeria, it's already made its money.
Oh, wow.
So it's made its money in the US, UK, Canada, EU, Asia.
I don't that's model. Okay.
Yeah. So by the time they get, they've sold how many billion in dollars in tickets. So when Black Panther made $1 billion, let's say, I don't know offhand, but let's just say 600 million or something was in the US, then 300 was say in EU, Asia, whatever, and maybe a little bit was in that. You know what I mean? So because if you look at it now, if you know how it is in Nigeria, who has that much disposable income and who has, to support some. So the stations, first of all, if you're lucky enough to get the people who will actually buy it and see the worth in it, that's one other issue, because you think it'd be easier to sell here. It hasn't been. It's been easier to sell abroad. It's been easier to get market from abroad than it is to sell it. And then we stopped trying. We stopped trying about maybe 10 years ago. And again, like, I also have to take responsibility for some things, because we might not be the best. But for me, if you have if you are a station with the remit of serving Nigeria, first off, and children of Nigeria, and a company comes with you with a viable product, yeah, you can do some work with each other somehow. So we met some good people. It's just at some final stages, the decision got shut down. And I don't really like playing that game. I don't have the patience for it. And if we kept playing that game, and it didn't make any sense, because they won't even have the budget to pay you to recoup your investment. So how do you now make money? First of all, how do you survive for the length of time it takes to produce an animation? Where do you get the finance from? And when you've now produced it, how do you sell it? Who's gonna buy it? So, and then of course the human capital, which is the animators, writers, actors. Talent is there. How do you mold that into an animation vehicle? So that one we sorted it out pretty well. That one was the talent molding into the thing. We worked that out. How to work. Made some mistakes. We actually were working remotely before people had to be forced to. We worked out techniques, production techniques and stuff like that. We knew the kind of level that we wanted to get to. That wasn't the problem. The problem was finance and then distribution.
Yeah, because I was going to ask that, because I said for you to run a studio, you need to pay your animators, you need to pay the actors and all of that. So that's why I was asking about, the challenges. So how did you get it on different channels? Because I know now it's on TV stations in different parts of Africa, I believe, apart from YouTube. I mean, YouTube is worldwide, but isn't it on different stations now?
No, it's more on different stations globally, not in Africa.
Oh, not
actually, yeah, we are. Actually, I forgot. Yeah, we're on Guli. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we are. No, not terrestrial though. Not free to air. So we are on like networks like DST, that model, like satellite, DSTV, Guli TV, all that. But we're not on NTA, for example.
Oh, really?
No.
Not yet, or just no? I would have thought that you would have set up your studio in the UK because of access to a lot of things. And yeah, that's what I just would have thought. Okay, set it up in the UK, then people can work remotely, you know. Because if I think of the challenges in Nigeria, first of all, running a business in Nigeria, power. Your generator is running, you know, almost constantly. And then, you know, just those little costs. And then with also talent, because I noticed that you have merchandise. You have the dolls, you have the DVDs and all of that. So in regards to your merchandise, do you source locally or China?
Merchandise is different. Creative talent is one thing. I think maybe we have a great team of animators, we have a great team of writers, like you said, you have to punch through the the bad ones, unprofessional ones, but most of I would say 80%, 98% of the people we've worked with have been amazing so far. So we've been lucky in that front. No, merchandise is different because our merchandise has been sold in different parts of the world. So we don't even have that capacity to do that kind of merchandise in Nigeria. So you can't do those kind of dolls that we do. You can't build
not even in Aba.
No.
Not even in Aba.
No, because you have to build it in facilities. Like for instance, we have to make sure that the dolls have a special European and US or European health and safety standard rating.
Yes.
So we don't have the dolls of, you know, you're playing with your doll and something just catches fire. We don't know. We wanted the dolls to hit us. Just like everything we do our best to make sure that it's a specific standard. So when it comes to the merchandise, as much as possible, so we're like, nope, it has to be like this. So you don't even have people, even in, okay, I don't want to say it, but definitely in Nigeria, you don't have those.
And then for the language, for the Bino and Fino episodes that you have in different languages, do you have a language standard? Because in translation, I listened to the Igbo version and then I listened to the Hausa version. And I found the Hausa version very, very interesting because I like to, I don't know, my Hausa used to be very good back in the day. But these days, I try to watch programs to remind so I don't forget. Yeah. And I was wondering, I said, what standard? Is there a language standard or is it the regular Hausa you would speak to a friend on the street? Because I learned new words and I wrote them down. Words that I had never thought of. Example, the pressing iron. And I think it was Dusenguga. I was very surprised. I went, Dusenguga? Oh, really? And then, what was that other word that I saw? Engine Bushigashi, hair dryer. Never thought of that. So yeah, so that's why I'm asking. So what standard of language, or is it the regular language we speak on the streets that you use for translation?
It depends. Again, this thing, it comes back down to your funding and the partners you're working with. So, and what you're trying to hit. So, for instance, with Igbo, languages everywhere, but like Nigeria, real minefield. Everyone has their own
Yes. Yeah.
And if you listen to everybody, you never actually get anything done because this is the proper Igbo. No, this is the proper. Like, okay, fine, no problem. So what we do with Igbo, we try to do it. What's it called again? I forgot the name right now. Just escapes me. There's a type of Igbo that nobody really speaks, but everyone understands.
Central Igbo,
right? So we try to at least, where possible, at least hit that one. Hausa, it depends. Like we work with Arawa, I think an organization called Arawa 24 for our Hausa dubs. So the first one worked with the different ones. Some of them were more like basically it just depends on who we're working with. There's always an issue with languages. Like even with the Portuguese one we did, there's Portuguese, there's Brazilian Portuguese, there's Spanish, there's Argentinian Spanish, there's
with French too, because
we try and hit where we can.
Yeah, because with French, because my book is bilingual, and when I reached out to translators, I had that. So there's Canadian French, Parisian French, and African French. I didn't know that. So they will say, let's use the language where everybody, that is easy for everyone to understand.
Or the target market.
Or target market.
So, exactly.
Okay,
so,
and how has, are you working on collaboration? Like, are you thinking of pitching to Disney, DreamWorks? Are you thinking of anything like that? No?
No.
Oh, isn't that the next step, like, to get out there?
No.
Oh.
Not for us, no.
Okay.
Not necessarily. I mean, it depends if no, not really. Because it's like what we're trying to do is just be on our own entity.
Okay.
So.
All right. So what about?
I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
No, I was just gonna ask. So what about with other? Because I was looking for other African-centered entertainment. I think I saw Ubongo. I think that's from Tanzania or somewhere.
Bongo, Super Sema, Bongo's I think a proper one.
Okay, it's a proper one. Then I know even Nigeria, but I have not seen any collaborations between, two animators. Oh, let's come together and do a movie. Because so all I just see are episodes. Like, how long does it take to create? A 30-minute episode? And will there be a Bino and Fino movie someday in the future?
Well, that's again, it's like you have to understand the context of the way you're doing it. So it's the same thing, that China issue that you encountered. No, you have studios like Triggerfish in South Africa producing movies and stuff like that. But for identifiably African content, I would say it's a bit more difficult. And on top of that, so to say, how long does it take to do a 30-minute episode? Well, to give you context, it took us almost 10 years to do 23 episodes.
Almost 10 years. Wow.
Yeah. Because you have no funding.
Oh, I keep forgetting about funding because my thinking was just, yes, you have an idea, you write, then you draw, you animate.
You have to have a team, not just one animator. Our team was like maybe 30 to 40 at some point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. So you have the animators, actors, sound designers, writers, lawyers, accountants, everything, legal, protect your IP, all of this stuff to even bring a brand out. Because we want the brand to grow.
Okay.
So if like Netflix wants to put us on their platform, that's different. The reason why you haven't seen collaborations as much, but there are collaborations going on in a weird way behind the scenes and stuff like that. We know the Bongo team very well. We're sharing information.
Okay.
They're a great team to work with. Share similar values, coming at it from different angles, but
okay.
So yeah, it just takes time. Unfortunately, it's gonna take time. It took Disney 100 years to get to where they got to, and Marvel how long it took to get to where they get to. So we're just gonna it's taken us 15 years to 12-ish years to get to this point. We're gonna have to. It's unavoidable.
Okay.
Like decades of work has to be done for it to happen.
So what tips would you give someone who is interested in going into animation? Let's say I decided tomorrow that, you know what, I want to, all my children's books, I would like to have them animated. Yeah, a lot of young people I've met who talk about, one day I would like to do animation. I would like to do that. What advice would you give them? What tips would you give them on starting and the reality, especially for those in Nigeria or in African countries?
I would say actually it's good. It's in a weird way, it's actually simpler now from one angle. When we started, there was YouTube has just opened up access to us and everything. There was no TikTok, this, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So now first, I'll just build up your audience. That'll be the first. It depends what you... Yeah, build up your audience. build up a fan base.
Fan base, okay.
Because you need eyes. The other stuff is, but your main focus should be building up that fan base. Okay. Let everybody, as many people as possible, see this thing that you want to bring, and as early as possible. So I wouldn't wait till you finish the animation before you now show it to everybody. I would start building up that fan base from zero. From I have this idea, start talking about it, start telling people about it. These are the things. Get an audience first.
An audience.
And start from the beginning. So when you finally release it, at least there are people to see it.
Okay.
Because sometimes the mistake we make is that we assume that everybody wants to see our stuff. Creators are amazing, and blah,
that's.
Blah, blah, blah.
I think that's.
We have to deserve ice cream.
That's one of the mistakes I made, because I just thought that, when you write a book about hair, everybody will be interested in reading it. And it didn't dawn on me that I had to do that, putting it on different social media platforms and all of that. Yeah, and then we keep pushing, just keep pushing and pushing. And okay, I think my final question to you would be, so what hopes do you have for the future of Bino and Fino? Where would you like it to go? What would you like to see happen to it? What would you like to see happen to cartoons with African content? Yeah.
I think regarding Bino and Fino specific, just get as big as possible.
Okay.
Have a global audience.
Okay.
And then use the revenues from that. First of all, have a good impact, represent our site well from a cultural standpoint, educational standpoint, provide a good voice in this sector. Like I said, okay, first of all, Bino and Fino to get as big as possible for various reasons. One, have the impact from, like I said, within the animation sector, kids animation sector, we don't have many voices from this part of the world.
Okay.
So I want to be part of that. I want that change representation to happen, because it has to, happening in film, happening in music, happening blah blah blah. But, so that's the first one, and then the second one is more, just to be as big as possible, so that if you have a global audience, you can now use that revenue to now help bring up the local creative talent. So one of my main things is that as much as possible, it has to be done here.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of people we've worked with have now gone on, they either gone abroad, or they're working, they gain some good skill sets which help them get jobs, bigger jobs, different jobs with external companies abroad. They're now in Nigeria, but they're now working for Disney and all this kind of stuff, partly because of the training they got and the work experience they got on the show.
Okay.
So, and on top of that, when you now get a massive show that is earning millions and people recognize it across the world, it's now not about trying to work with Disney. It's now about trying to work with the guys who created Bino and Fino, the guys who created the Bongo, the guys who created the local ones. Because a lot of us here, and I don't blame them, like, I want to work with Disney, I want to work with this, which is fine, because they don't have any vehicles that they can pour their talent into that can pay them the money or give them the creative depth.
Okay.
As a Lion King, or as a Batman, or as a Black Panther movie, or as a Woman King, or as whatever.
Yeah.
So if you have big projects from here, the creative talent will come to you as well. Most people want to work on the best. So if you prove that, hey, Bino and Fino is making the same money as, let's say, Peppa Pig, or this, we can pay you as much, or even, for instance, is making so much money, we can now take that and develop other properties. Again, using local talent to develop, or the remote, so there's different, that's my ideal, making millions, hundreds of millions across the world, and you're using that's your funding, basically, to now do different kinds of projects, and it's a successful, viable thing that makes people proud to be working with and everything. So that's kind of the way I see it. So two levels. One is the impact on the customer side, viewer side, and then the impact on the industry side.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very, very much for taking out time to chat with me this morning. And I also want to thank you for reposting. I had posted something from my book about hair, and I noticed you reposted it. So thank you. You might not remember, but thank you very much.
I didn't even know that was you.
That's me, yeah. Bino and Fino, that was part of my inspiration. Because content. So I watched Bino and Fino, I watched Taido, I watched Ubongo, and I went, I like history and I can actually write history for kids. I can adapt it. I did that. I mean, my first manuscript had 5,000 words and it was rejected by all the publishers I sent it off to. So I had to send it to a consultant and say, you've written over 30 children's books. Please take a look at this manuscript and tell me what's wrong with it. And the first thing she said was, wording, it's too long. You need to bring it down to 1,000 or 1,500 words. And there are some kind of words you don't use for children's books. Remember, you need to keep a child engaged. So I would like to say a very big thank you. You know, I do my best to put Black voices out there, but just to find out what is going on. So for us, I think it's time for us to shape our own narrative, one book at a time, because, you know, telling authentic stories. So I would just like to say a very big thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Have a nice day. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.